Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Testament Tuesday. It is Tuesday, and it's Testament Tuesday, and we have here our wonderful guest, Mr. Josh. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here. I know I just kind of roped you into this, but I also know you have quite the story. You're a guy. You're a guy.
Yeah, I'm a guy, definitely, of the male...
Of the male type. Yeah, so for those tuning in for the first time, Testament Tuesday is just where people come on and they share their story to give God the glory. They just kind of talk about what God's done in their life and how he pursued them and how they got here, because we're all here at OLO, but how did we get here? So maybe start us from the beginning. Little Josh, is it Joshua?
It is Joshua.
Oh,
but
does
I've
anyone ever call you that?
Parents when they were angry.
Oh, okay. We won't use that.
Or humorously. And certain teachers always like that one.
But we'll just call you Josh.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
That's great.
All right. So maybe just start us. What was life like growing up for you? What was your faith like? What was the exposure that you had?
I have good parents, but we didn't go to mass or really deepen my faith. Now, I had Bibles. My mom reminded me of Christ's love, but it didn't hit me. I wasn't inculcated, I guess is the good word. But I spent a lot of time describing myself as a Catholic and not really knowing what that was. And so after high school, nothing really came of it.
Yeah, it didn't stick.
Nothing stuck really, other than, I always loved God. Always felt like I loved God, and I wanted some kind of a relationship with him, but I had no idea what that was supposed to be. And my image of God as a father figure was almost it was a negative one. I'm a servant in your house, and I'm not worthy to be here. So I'm kind of, I love you, but I'm kind of mad at you.
Got it. Yeah. So it was definitely a distance kind of like relationship. Like, I love you, but like you're way up there and I'm down here.
Sadly, it was the dad that I went to when I needed something, when I was scared or desperate. But then the rest of the time, that was not much.
Yeah. Okay. So that's up until through high school then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So then at some point the journey continues. Do you end up at college right away? Where do you go from high school?
Oh, I graduated high school and started doing some contract work and tried to join 4 of the branches of the military and got refused from every one of them. And I picked up a job at a bank, and then I moved into the firearms industry, and I was there for a good long time. And I didn't go to college. I had no real understanding of what worth I might have. I figured, well, I can't pay for it out of pocket, and I didn't understand, hey, you can get a student loan. Mm-hmm. I'd have done it had I realized that I had the ability to do that. But I'm glad now that I didn't, because without God in my life, the way that he is now, the way that I had no real basis to my faith, it would have taken me probably in a very bad direction. Oh, yeah. Even then. Oh, yeah. Because I was very vulnerable, very impressionable at that time.
Yeah. So in God's timing, so you go on to do that. And then at some point, though, you end up here at Texas State somehow. So you had done several other jobs. You had been working a little bit. Then what was the draw? How did you come back to school? Or
I was working as a production manager for a small company, and we were cranking out gun stocks. And one day, a kind of sort of friend of mine who was non-denominational worship leader tells me, "Hey, I think you should go to this retreat. It's a 3-day thing, and I think it would do you some good." And I thought, yeah, that would really be great. So even leading up to it, I started to feel like, maybe there was something to it, and I had this optimism that kind of took over, and so I went on the retreat, and it was just a form of an Acts retreat if you took all of the correct theology out of it. And it was still wonderful because it just kind of reminds you, hey, God loves you and he wants a relationship with you, and you need to do those things that solidify that, start that walk with him and agree to walk with him. And I did. So that was 4 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it was actually 4 years ago, almost to the day.
Wow. Okay.
In fact, I found a picture yesterday that I took the day after I got back, because the day I got back, I realized that the relationship that I was in with somebody at the time was not going to help lead me to Christ. And
which is a difficult realization to come to.
Yes, it was a fairly short ordeal, but it was enough for me to say, I'm taking a different path. And I did that. And about a couple of months later, that same friend came back to me, and I had been talking to him about, I don't want to be alone forever. I'm in my mid to late 20s. And he goes, just relax. I think you've been through enough and you need to grow. And I'm okay. And one day I'd had enough. I went on a date with one girl and I said, you know what, Lord, I've had enough. It's yours. This is yours. And I don't know, it must have been a couple of days later, my friend's wife comes up to me when I'm going to this little non-denominational church and tells me, I think I met your wife. Okay. So fast forward about another month or so in August, and I meet Alex, who is now my wife.
Oh my gosh.
We've been married 2 years, and we've been together 3.
How did she know? She just knew, I guess.
She said, when I told her, hey, I'm giving this up, I'm giving it to God. If you want to play matchmaker, go right ahead. And she said, well, I'm giving it up to God too. And she said, so it's in his hands, and I'm just going to help if I can.
Wow.
And night we met, we pretty much just knew. It was strange how after countless dates with no telling how many different people, just in that moment clicked. I saw her, and within an hour I knew this is the person I want to spend my time with.
Wow. Now, was she Christian? Was she like, what was her kind of situation?
She was about the same position as I was.
Okay.
But I had a little more familiarity with some of the things in the faith. I mean, my folks, especially my dad, would tell me things that were really interesting about church doctrine, just occasionally, just here and there. And my mom was more the, Jesus loves you type. And that's they're both wonderful. They balance each other out in a way.
Both needed. Yeah.
Yes. And so all she really knew was, Jesus loves you. And so at one point, after we got married, I start looking around trying to figure out what do I do? Where do we go? Where do we belong? And thinking, okay, what church do we need to go to? Well, it's not just any old church, just wherever that someone sets up. There has to be some kind of authority. If God started this church, if Christ started this church on earth and entrusted these guys to it, what happened to it? I called up my dad one day and said, what's the deal with the Catholic Church? And he says, it's the church. I'm like, well, how do you get that? And he goes, read Acts. And
shout out to Dad, dropping some serious truth bombs there.
He did. And it was always just these very tight little simple answers of, you know where to go do it. And put it in my hands of, hey, if you want to be a man and you want to lead your family, you need to know this stuff. And so I did. I started looking into these things. I went and looked at the catechism and started understanding, okay, where does this all come from? I started listening to Pints of Aquinas. that always seems to be in a conversion story, right?
Yes, yeah.
That's like a great standard form.
Yes.
Listens to Pints of Aquinas, becomes a Catholic. And I don't know, I was listening to it for a couple of weeks, and I told Alex, who had originally had an uncertainty about the Catholic Church because she had been raised, well, we don't go to those churches. They're Catholic.
Yeah.
We don't do that. And I told her, I have every reason to believe this is the church, and we need to go here. This is where God wants us to be because this is where we all need to be. And she goes, okay.
Wow.
I'll go wherever you go.
Yeah, you lead, I'll follow. Wow. But it continues, though, because you didn't just go to any old Catholic church. I mean,
no.
Maybe you started there, but you certainly did not end up there.
No, we went to a couple of different churches, and I don't want to talk down on any particular parish or anything, but there were certain things that felt like they were missing when we went to some of the churches we went to. We started going to the Mission of Divine Mercy out at Canyon Lake, and the only thing that really kept us from continuing to go there when we moved to Kyle was the distance.
Yeah, it's far.
Almost an hour and a half just
it's
to get out
beautiful,
there.
but it's far to drive.
It's wonderful, and the silence, and I just remember the winter cold biting you.
Oh, yeah.
Even with the panels up and the heaters on, it's cold, and you just stay cold.
You just feel it to your bone.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that feeling because it reminds you, hey, you're human, you're flesh and blood.
You're alive. Yeah.
You're an ensouled body, yes, but you're human and you will die.
Yeah.
And you better be ready for that.
So you shopped around for a bit, in a sense. And again, like, you knew that the Catholic Church was the truth, but there is something to be said about, like, we will oftentimes find different things attractive about different types of churches within the Catholic Church, and that's fine. That's why we have these different flavors, right? This variety within the Catholic Church, which is fine, because there's nothing wrong with people who prefer the Latin Mass to, another type of Mass to another type. Like, it's fine. And but at some point, you found something that then just clicked.
It did.
Yeah.
Our Lady's Maronite.
Yep. Maronite, right?
Just
so good. So good.
Yes. And just the history. I'm a history buff, so that's already something to me. And the fact that they, as a tiny little church in the mountains of Lebanon, just held their own against the Mohammedan hordes over and over and over again, until the Crusaders show up and go, who are you guys? Well, we're the Catholic Church. Well, no, we're from the Catholic Church. Oh, okay. Let's catch each other up then. Yeah. Let's compare notes.
Yeah.
And we took it on. We loved it. And I'm so happy to see that my wife has just taken on the faith. She reads.
That was kind of my next question. So she agreed in the beginning, but at some point, I'm sure she began to pursue these things on her own and maybe came to realize the fullness of the truth, right?
She did. Yeah. And she would ask questions. She still does. And she doesn't have a lot of time to read or research or anything right now, but she's learned a lot because I love to talk about it, and she just listens and is, well, what about this? And how does that work? And why do we do this? Or why does it matter? Yeah. And she's taking it on. There's days that I'm like, you pray more than I do, and you pray way more than I do. Yeah. You're way more disciplined with some of this stuff. And she's just wonderful, just ideal wife, just perfect, because she followed, but she chose to not just follow it for a rote thing of, well, that's what my husband wants to do.
Blind. Like, she wasn't just blindly like, oh, okay, whatever you say,
I'm trusting God to lead my husband so that he can lead me.
Yes.
And I need to trust God in that. And that perfect triangle.
Yeah. And what a beautiful reflection then, your marriage. And I think sometimes people need to remember that, marriage has really taken a hit over the past several decades, right? And it's so easy to think that marriage is just between two people. And that's what society tells us. It's between this person and that person. But as Catholics, we're like, no. Like, first of all, it's a covenant. It's like a sacrament. It's not just a thing that you do if you're bored or something or lonely. But that it's so much greater than that God is at the center of that marriage, and that you two are walking towards him together. But it's towards God, not just each other. And that's a beautiful thing, because now, I mean, that means you get to enter into like the family aspect of marriage, right?
Right.
Because like love then gives way to new life. So
It does. And I would have to describe that having this faith now, having a relationship with God, and being totally steeped in the Catholic Church is being both hard and easy. It is joy and suffering in the best of ways.
yeah.
And I have never been so glad to experience a moment of guilt that teaches me, and experience moments of difficulty that make me stronger and make me trust God. Because I know that I'm weak. They make me stronger because I'm willing to just say everything else stops and I look to God. And I won't tear away from Him. And that's the only strength that I could really give myself credit for. Yeah. All other strength comes from God. It all does.
Wow. Well, what a beautiful journey. And it really is something to kind of see just how God can work through kind of these little things. I know some people have this like giant conversion moment, you know, they're struck by lightning or the billboard sign and whatever. But I think the vast majority of conversions are more of just like kind of this slow, progressive thing. God starts tugging your heart in one direction. And, you know, it might start with something like a retreat, and then maybe you meet, you know, your wife, and it's just kind of this slow series of events that begins to unfold. And then it gets you to this place where like, how did I even end up here? It's so incredible.
It feels both gradual, and it feels like I was yanked at full force with a rope tied around my waist as hard as possible, because you know, you go to 26 years old and then boom, I just turned 31, and the last 4 years of my life it's been insane.
Yeah.
Such a radical change so fast.
It's incredible. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Josh, thank you so much for just giving your time and being willing to share your story. It's definitely a relatable one. I feel like there's a lot in there that people can relate to. Obviously, it's God's story. It's your story, but it's the one that God has kind of began to unfold for you. But if you're listening out there and you would like to be on the podcast, you can shoot me an email at podcast@txstatecatholic.org. If you shoot me an email, I'll get you on the show, so that way you can share your story to give God the glory. Josh, once again, thank you so much, brother.
Thank you.
You're my
Thank you
brother. That's how you have to say brother, by the way. You can't say it normal. It's like brother. It's got to be the Hulk Hogan brother.
Oh, brother.
Close. You know what?
Brother.
We'll work on it. You got it. All right, everyone. Thank you so much, and God bless. Bye-bye.